Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for new stories. The night sky over Earth shimmered as though it were alive, streaked with the fiery descent of something far larger than a meteor. 4 hours, citizens around the globe captured the spectacle on their devices, uploading images of the object as it made a gradual descent toward a remote plain in South America. No one knew what it was, but by the time it landed, the world held its breath. The alien ship was massive, like a cathedral made of living crystal and pulsating light. Its arrival was neither violent nor sudden, but deliberate, as though its pilots wanted to be sure humanity could witness their approach. Within hours, global leaders dispatched a coalition of diplomats, scientists, and soldiers to meet the visitors. Ladies and gentlemen of Earth, a translator's voice echoed across the plain, though no one could see where it came from. We are the Valtari, emissaries from the Galactic Concord. We come with an urgent request. Out stepped a group of Valtari, tall, angular beings with translucent skin that shimmered in the sunlight, revealing veins that glowed faintly blue. Their movements were elegant but oddly stilted, as though gravity itself was a mild inconvenience. Their leader, a being called Orcs, addressed the assembly. Your species is unique, Orcs began, tilting its head in a manner that Earth's delegation later interpreted as a sign of curiosity. We have traveled across the stars to seek your aid in a matter of life and death for our kind. Our species faces extinction and only humans can save us. The assembled humans murmured, exchanging puzzled looks. The notion of being singled out by an advanced alien race was daunting enough, but the reason soon plunged the gathering into stunned silence. Our genetic matrix is failing, Orcs explained, the aliens' tone heavy with what might have been sorrow. Centuries of environmental catastrophes and inbreeding have rendered us incapable of sustaining healthy offspring. Your species possesses remarkable genetic plasticity. Specifically your reproductive cells. Orcs' luminous gaze swept across the human delegation. In your terms, sperm. Your sperm holds the key to saving us. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Eliza Warren, one of the leading biologists present, blinked rapidly. I'm sorry, she said, her voice betraying her disbelief. Are you asking us to donate sperm? Yes, Orcs replied, its tone matter of fact. Your reproductive material is unparalleled. We will compensate you richly, of course. Your culture values trade, does it not? This prompted a few incredulous chuckles from the more cynical members of the group, but the gravity of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. The Valtari had come to Earth, desperate and prepared to negotiate for their species' survival, yet their proposal was as bewildering as it was intrusive. The discussion turned tense almost immediately. Some representatives viewed the aliens' request as absurd, even offensive. Others saw it as a historic opportunity. Yet, beneath the arguments, one undeniable truth began to take shape. Humanity, a species often dismissed as insignificant by other galactic powers, had something no one else could provide. The weight of this revelation settled heavily on every member of the delegation. Whatever decision they made, the consequences would ripple far beyond Earth's borders. Earth, in the eyes of the Galactic Concord, was a footnote, an unremarkable planet on the outskirts of a mid-tier star system. Humans had sent probes and signals into the cosmos for centuries, hoping to join the interstellar community, but their messages often went unanswered. When the Valtari arrived, it wasn't because humanity was respected, it was because they were desperate. For the first time in decades, Earth had become the center of attention. The global media exploded with coverage of the alien ship and its unusual request. News anchors tried to explain the science behind the Valtari's need, while talk show hosts spun the story into late-night comedy gold. Breaking news, one popular comedian quipped. We're not just good at making babies, we're apparently galaxy class. The meeting aftermath. While the public alternated between fascination and humor, the delegation's initial meeting with the Valtari devolved into chaos. Diplomats and scientists clashed in private over the implications of the aliens' request. It's unethical, Ambassador Jaya Rao declared, slamming her hand on the polished conference table. They're treating us like livestock, like some kind of genetic farm. Ambassador, with all due respect, Dr. Eliza Warren countered, this isn't about exploitation. It's about survival. Their species is dying. We have the means to help. And why us? General Hector Vargas cut in, his arms crossed over his broad chest. Why not some other species out there in their galactic concord? Don't tell me we're the only ones who can do this. Orcs, who had been silent until then, spoke. Your reproductive biology is distinct. Unlike most species in the Concord, your genetic material is extraordinarily adaptable. It can integrate with our failing genome in a way no other species can. Dr. Warren's eyes narrowed. Extraordinarily adaptable? You mean our sperm can fuse with your genetic code? Yes, Orvist replied simply. That's not how biology works, she muttered half to herself. Orvist turned to face her fully, its translucent features shimmering faintly. Your species is more remarkable than you know. The Concord has studied you from afar for centuries. Most dismissed you as primitive and chaotic, yet your resilience and adaptability are unparalleled. Resilience and adaptability? General Vargas scoffed. That's just a fancy way of saying we're stubborn and scrappy. Orvist inclined its head. Precisely. Earth's place in the galaxy. As the meeting adjourned, humanity's leaders found themselves grappling with an uncomfortable truth. The Valtari's visit wasn't just a plea for help, it was a stark reminder of Earth's lowly standing in the galactic hierarchy. We're the galactic equivalent of a forgotten roadside diner, Dr. Warren grumbled to a colleague later that evening. No one notices us unless they're starving. Despite the insult, some saw opportunity in the Valtari's desperation. The United Nations quickly convened an emergency session, debating how to respond to the alien request. While some nations advocated for caution, others were eager to seize the moment. This is our chance to prove our worth, argued one delegate. To show the galaxy that humanity isn't just a backwater species. If we help the Valtari, we could secure a place in the Galactic Concord. Others were less optimistic. And what happens if this backfires? Another delegate countered. What if the Valtari misuse our genetic material? Or worse, what if they decide they don't need our consent next time? The debate intensifies. While politicians and diplomats wrestled with the ethical dilemmas, the public response was equally divided. Protesters gathered outside government buildings holding signs that read, "Humanity is not for sale," and "Keep Earth DNA safe." Meanwhile, online forums buzzed with wild speculation and memes. One particularly popular post featured an image of a Valtari with the caption, "Y'all got any more of that sperm?" In quieter corners of the scientific community, a different kind of discussion unfolded. Dr. Warren and her colleagues delved into the data the Valtari had shared about their genome. What they found was both fascinating and troubling. Their DNA is collapsing, Dr. Warren explained during a late-night call with her team. Centuries of genetic bottlenecks have left their population teetering on the edge of viability. If we don't help, they'll go extinct within a generation. And if we do help, one of her colleagues asked. We might save them, she replied. But we'd also be giving them an unprecedented level of access to our genetic code. That's a risk we can't ignore. An uncertain future. As the days passed, the world's attention remained fixed on the alien ship and the delicate negotiations taking place. The Valtari, for their part, remained patient but firm in their request. Orvist and its delegation made repeated appearances, offering reassurances and promises of compensation. We understand your hesitation, Orvist said during a televised address. We do not wish to impose upon you. But know this, your species has the power to save another from extinction. Few acts in the galaxy carry such honor. The speech resonated with some, but others remained skeptical. The Valtari's need was undeniable, but so were the risks. Humanity stood at a crossroads, and the weight of the decision was almost unbearable. For Dr. Warren, the answer wasn't simple. The scientist in her was fascinated by the challenge, but the human in her couldn't ignore the moral implications. Late one night, she stared out the window of her lab, watching the faint glow of the alien ship on the horizon. We're not ready for this, she whispered. But maybe we never will be. The question loomed larger than ever. What would humanity choose? The alien delegation's request had thrust Earth into a whirlwind of scientific inquiry and political debate, and nowhere was the chaos more palpable than in the sprawling laboratories of the United Nations Science Corps. Leading the effort was Dr. Eliza Warren, whose team had been tasked with deciphering the Valtari's biology and determining the feasibility and ethics of their desperate request. The Valtari provided a wealth of genetic data, much of it astonishing. Their genome, once robust, was now riddled with errors, with entire segments missing or rendered inoperable. Despite their advanced technology, they had been unable to reverse the damage, which they attributed to centuries of environmental degradation and genetic homogenization. But it was their reproductive biology that truly baffled the scientists. The Valtari's biological puzzle. Wait a minute, Dr. Warren said, frowning at the holographic display hovering above her desk. They don't have chromosomes? Her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chan, nodded grimly. Not in the way we do. Their genome's structured more like a constantly shifting lattice, dynamic but extremely fragile. It's why they're falling apart. They can't maintain genetic stability. Dr. Warren leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. The implications were staggering. Human DNA, with its comparatively stable double helix structure, offered a solution that no other known species could provide. But integrating the two systems would be like trying to graft a tree branch onto a circuit board. Okay, she said after a moment. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that human sperm could interface with their genetic lattice. How does that even work? Are we talking about actual fertilization? Dr. Chan smirked. Not exactly. According to the Valtari, their reproductive process is less physical than ours. It's more like an exchange of genetic signals. They call it genetic resonance. Dr. Warren raised an eyebrow. Genetic resonance? That sounds like pseudoscience. Maybe, Dr. Chan replied. But the data doesn't lie. They've run simulations using genetic material from other species, and none of it works, except ours. Lost in translation. While the scientists wrestled with the technical challenges, the Valtari struggled to bridge the cultural divide. Their understanding of human reproduction was rudimentary at best, leading to frequent misunderstandings. During one meeting, Orvist presented a detailed proposal for a genetic harvesting initiative. The document, translated into Earth languages, was rife with terms like optimal extraction efficiency and mass acquisition of viable samples. Dr. Warren stared at the screen in horror. Did they just suggest setting up sperm collection centers in every major city? Ambassador Rao, seated beside her, sighed heavily. I think they're trying to be efficient. But yes, it's incredibly tone-deaf. We can't let this get out, Dr. Warren said firmly. The public will riot. The team worked late into the night, drafting a more palatable version of the proposal. Orvist, to its credit, seemed genuinely confused by humanity's objections. You perceive this as invasive? The alien asked during a private meeting with Dr. Warren. Deeply invasive, she replied. Humans value autonomy, especially when it comes to reproduction. What you're proposing feels transactional, dehumanizing. Orvist tilted its head, its luminous eyes dimming slightly. Our intent is not to harm. In our culture, offering one's genetic material is considered an act of great honor and generosity. We did not anticipate that your species would view it differently. Dr. Warren sighed. It's not just about intent. It's about consent. If you want humanity's help, you'll need to respect our boundaries. A glimmer of understanding. Gradually, the Valtari began to adapt their approach. They proposed a voluntary donation program, emphasizing transparency and ethical practices. Orvist even agreed to participate in a live broadcast, answering questions from human journalists. The broadcast, aired globally, was both enlightening and surreal. Orvist, seated in a carefully lit studio, spoke directly to humanity for the first time. We do not ask this of you lightly, the alien said, its voice resonating through the translator. Our species has endured much and we have little left to offer. But we come to you with hope, not as conquerors but as equals. Your generosity could save billions of lives. The message struck a chord with many viewers, though skepticism remained high. Polls showed a slight shift in public opinion, with more people willing to consider the Valtari's request, provided it was handled responsibly. The first experiment. Behind the scenes, Dr. Warren's team had begun preliminary experiments. Using synthetic models, they tested the compatibility of human DNA with the Valtari's genetic lattice. The results were astonishing. It's actually working, Dr. Chan said, staring at the screen in disbelief. The human genome is stabilizing their lattice. Dr. Warren, standing beside him, frowned. Too well. Look at this. Our DNA isn't just stabilizing their genome, it's dominating it. If we're not careful, we could erase their genetic identity entirely. The room fell silent. The breakthrough was undeniable, but so were the risks. Humanity's unique biology could save the Valtari, but it could also reshape them in ways no one fully understood. The ethics of salvation. As the scientists prepared to present their findings to the UN, Dr. Warren found herself torn. The Valtari were running out of time, but the moral dilemmas were mounting. Could humanity justify altering another species so profoundly? And if they did, what would it mean for their own identity? Late one night, as she pored over the data, her phone buzzed with a message from Ambassador Rao. They're asking for an update. The council wants your recommendation. No pressure. Dr. Warren stared at the screen, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She knew the answer wouldn't be simple. "We're not just saving a species," she murmured. "We're deciding who they become." The fate of the Valtari, and humanity's place in the galaxy, hung in the balance. The Valtari ship loomed over the South American plains, its shimmering surfaces a constant reminder of humanity's sudden plunge into galactic significance. Yet, inside the diplomatic chambers and research facilities hastily set up around the site, tensions continued to rise. The cultural divide between humans and Valtari, already vast, seemed to grow with every interaction. The Valtari, despite their elegant demeanor and advanced technology, were utterly baffled by humanity's emotional responses to their request. Humans, for their part, struggled to reconcile their curiosity and compassion with their fiercely guarded sense of autonomy. A ceremony misunderstood. One particularly fraught moment came when Orvist invited the human delegation to observe a traditional Valtari ceremony meant to honor their potential donors. The ceremony took place in the ship's grand atrium, a space filled with pulsating light and intricate crystalline structures. Dr. Eliza Warren, Ambassador Rao, and a small group of diplomats attended, unsure of what to expect. Orvist had assured them that the ritual was a profound expression of gratitude, but the reality left the humans stunned. As the ceremony began, the Valtari formed a circle, their translucent bodies glowing in synchronized pulses. A series of haunting, melodic tones filled the air, a language of resonance rather than words. At first it was beautiful, otherworldly and serene. Then the chanting shifted. Holographic projections of DNA strands, human DNA, appeared in the center of the circle. The strands twisted and intertwined with Valtari genetic patterns in an elaborate dance. "What is this?" Ambassador Rao whispered to Dr. Warren. "I think it's symbolic," Warren replied, though her tone betrayed her unease. The climax of the ritual came when the Valtari turned toward the human observers, bowing deeply while their luminous veins pulsed in shades of gold and blue. To the Valtari this was a gesture of profound respect and reverence. To the humans it felt unsettlingly like worship. Afterward, as the delegation exited the ship, Ambassador Rao exploded. "That was a disaster," she snapped. "They've turned this into some kind of fertility cult. Do they have any idea how this looks?" Dr. Warren frowned. "I don't think they meant it that way. To them this was a gesture of honor." "It doesn't matter what they meant," Rao said. "What matters is how it's perceived. The moment the public sees something like this, we lose what little trust we've gained." The Valtari perspective. The human delegation's reaction left Orvist and its peers puzzled. When Dr. Warren met with the alien leader the following day, she tried to explain the issue. "In our culture," she said carefully, "rituals like the one we witnessed can be seen as excessive. People might interpret them as manipulative or even fanatical." Orvist tilted its head, the alien equivalent of a furrowed brow. "But the ceremony is meant to express gratitude and humility. Are these not virtues in your culture?" "They are," Warren replied, "but humans tend to be wary of anything that feels coercive." Orvist's eyes dimmed slightly, a sign of disappointment. "Your species is more complex than we anticipated. You value individuality above all, even at the expense of collective survival. It is perplexing." "It's not that we don't care about survival," Warren said, leaning forward. "It's that we need to feel like we're choosing to help, not being pressured into it. Choice matters to us." The alien leader was silent for a long moment, its luminous veins flickering. "Then we must adapt," it said at last. "If your species values choice, we will find ways to honor that. But time is not on our side." Human eccentricities. While the Valtari struggled to understand humanity's need for autonomy, the human delegation faced their own set of challenges. The aliens' customs and assumptions about reproduction led to a series of awkward, even comical misunderstandings. At one point, a group of Valtari scientists requested to observe a human reproductive health clinic, believing it to be a center for genetic harvesting. The misunderstanding was only cleared up after an embarrassed clinic director spent half an hour explaining the difference between a fertility lab and a sperm bank. Then there was the issue of language. The Valtari's translator, though advanced, often struggled with Earth's idioms and metaphors. When a diplomat described the negotiations as a sticky situation, the Valtari took it literally and spent several minutes apologizing for their ship's internal humidity levels. Despite these moments of levity, the underlying tensions remained. A diplomatic rift. As public opinion continued to shift, factions within both the human and Valtari delegations began to emerge. On Earth, a growing coalition of nations and activist groups opposed the idea of genetic sharing altogether, citing concerns about exploitation and the loss of human genetic sovereignty. Within the Valtari delegation, dissent took a different form. A small but vocal group of Valtari argued that relying on human DNA was an unacceptable compromise, one that would taint their species' purity. During a heated discussion in the Human Valtari Council chamber, one of these dissenters confronted Orvist directly. "You place too much faith in these primitives," the dissenter said, its translucent form pulsing with red light. "If we are to survive, it should be on our terms, not theirs." Orvist's voice was calm but firm. "Survival on any terms is preferable to extinction. If humanity is willing to help us, we must meet them halfway." The dissenter glared at Orvist, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You are blinded by desperation. These creatures will not save us. They will only corrupt us." The room fell silent. Though Orvist remained composed, Dr. Warren saw a flicker of unease in the alien leader's posture. The rift within the Valtari delegation was growing, and it threatened to undermine everything. A fragile alliance. As tensions mounted on both sides, Dr. Warren knew that the alliance was on the brink of collapse. The cultural differences, the ethical dilemmas, and the internal divisions were all conspiring to derail the effort. Late one night, she found herself pacing in her lab, staring at the data on her screen. The solution to the Valtari's crisis was within reach, but the road to it was fraught with peril. "Humans and aliens," she muttered to herself. "We're more alike than we think. Stubborn, proud, and too wrapped up in our own identities to see the bigger picture." She sighed, glancing out the window at the faint glow of the Valtari ship in the distance. "If we don't figure this out soon," she said quietly, "we'll lose more than just an alliance. We'll lose the chance to prove we're more than a backwater planet." The stakes had never been higher and time was running out. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on Dr. Eliza Warren as she stood in the sterile observation chamber, staring at the setup before her. A series of clear cylindrical tanks filled with a translucent, shimmering fluid occupied the center of the room. Suspended within each tank were tiny, organic constructs, artificial matrices designed to mimic the Valtari's genetic lattice. This was the culmination of weeks of work. The synthetic matrices would serve as test subjects, allowing the scientists to simulate genetic integration without involving actual living beings. It was the safest way to proceed, but even this controlled environment carried enormous stakes. If the experiment succeeded, it would prove that humanity could save the Valtari. If it failed, it might doom them, and tarnish humanity's reputation in the galaxy forever. Dr. Marcus Chan entered the chamber, carrying a tablet loaded with the latest results. "Everything's set," he said, his voice betraying a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We've calibrated the matrices to match the parameters the Valtari provided. If this works, we should see stabilization within the first 48 hours. Dr. Warren nodded, her gaze never leaving the tanks. "And if it doesn't?" Chan hesitated. "Let's hope we don't have to find out." A race against time. While the scientists focused on the experiment, political tensions on Earth reached a boiling point. Protests erupted in major cities, with activists decrying the project as a violation of human dignity. One protest leader, a charismatic figure named Leona Briggs, became the face of the opposition. In a fiery speech broadcast worldwide, she declared, "We are not the galaxy's genetic saviors. The Valtari have no right to demand this of us, and our leaders have no right to sell our humanity for a seat at their table." Ambassador Jaya Rao watched the broadcast from her office, her frustration mounting. She had spent countless hours trying to manage the public relations nightmare, but the resistance only seemed to grow stronger. "We're losing ground," she said to her assistant. "If we don't show tangible progress soon, this entire effort could collapse." The assistant hesitated. "There's also the matter of the Valtari dissenters. They've been sending coded transmissions to someone on Earth. We think they're trying to sabotage the negotiations." Rao's eyes narrowed. "Find out who they're communicating with. If this alliance fails, it won't be because of a few malcontents." The unexpected variable. Back in the lab, the experiment was progressing smoothly, until it wasn't. On the second day, one of the matrices began to exhibit strange behavior. Instead of stabilizing, it started to mutate. The human DNA was integrating with the Valtari lattice, but the process was far more aggressive than expected. "Is that supposed to happen?" Dr. Chan asked, his voice tinged with alarm. Dr. Warren leaned closer to the monitor, her brow furrowed. "No. The integration is too fast. The human DNA is overriding the lattice instead of complementing it." She quickly tapped a series of commands into her console, running diagnostic scans on the matrix. The results were both fascinating and deeply troubling. "The human genome is dominant," she said, More to herself than to Chan, it's not just stabilizing their structure. It's reshaping it entirely. Chan frowned. That's not what we promised the Valtari. If this happens on a larger scale, we're not saving their species. We're creating something new. Dr. Warren nodded grimly. We need to figure out why this is happening and how to stop it, before the Valtari find out. A fractured alliance. Unbeknownst to the scientists, tensions aboard the Valtari ship were also reaching a breaking point. Orvist's leadership was being challenged openly by the dissenter faction, who argued that relying on humanity would compromise their species beyond recognition. We have endured hardship before, one of the dissenters declared during a heated council meeting. We can endure this as well. Better to die as Valtari than to live as something corrupted. Orvist's luminous eyes glowed with determination. You speak of purity as if it will sustain us. But purity is meaningless if we are extinct. Humanity offers us hope, a chance to survive. I will not squander that chance because of fear. The council erupted into arguments, but Orvist stood firm. Still, it was clear that the fractures within the Valtari delegation were growing deeper. A desperate decision. On the third day, the mutation in the matrix reached a critical point. The structure began to collapse, unable to sustain the rapid changes introduced by the human DNA. It's failing, Dr. Chan said, his voice tight with frustration. Dr. Warren gritted her teeth. Shut it down before it destabilizes further. We can't risk contaminating the other samples. As the tank powered down, the room fell silent. The failure was a devastating blow, but it also raised a crucial question. Was it possible to integrate human and Valtari genetics without losing the essence of either? Later that evening, Dr. Warren met with Orvist to discuss the results. She was reluctant to share the full extent of the problem, but she knew honesty was necessary. The initial test didn't go as planned, she admitted. Our DNA is too dominant. If we move forward without adjustments, the process could fundamentally alter your species. Orvist's expression remained unreadable, its glowing veins flickering faintly. And if no adjustments are possible? Dr. Warren hesitated. Then we'll have to make a choice. Abandon the project or accept the consequences? Orvist was silent for a long moment before replying. We are already dying. If we do nothing, there will be no Valtari left to preserve. But if we proceed, we may lose what we are. It is a choice between extinction and transformation. A glimpse of unity. As the experiment moved into its next phase, Dr. Warren found herself reflecting on the deeper implications of the project. The Valtari weren't just asking for humanity's help. They were asking for trust, for partnership, for the chance to become something greater together. In a rare moment of optimism, she allowed herself to believe that this collaboration, fraught as it was, might represent the beginning of something extraordinary. Sometimes, she thought, survival means letting go of what we were to become what we need to be. But as the countdown to the next experiment ticked away, one thing was certain. The path forward would be anything but simple. The failure of the first experiment cast a shadow over the entire project. Inside the UN Science Corps lab, the air was heavy with tension as Dr. Eliza Warren and her team worked around the clock to uncover what had gone wrong. Meanwhile, public protests escalated, and distrust among the Valtari threatened to unravel the alliance. The saboteur revealed. Late one night, Ambassador Rao received an urgent call. Security analysts had intercepted a coded message confirming that someone within the human delegation had been working with the Valtari dissenters. The revelation was a blow. The fragile partnership depended on a shared commitment to the experiment, and now even that foundation was in jeopardy. Rao summoned Dr. Warren to her office, her tone grim. We have a traitor. Someone on our side has been feeding intel to the Valtari opposition. Warren's eyebrows shot up in shock. Who? And why? We're still figuring that out, Rao replied. But it's clear they're trying to sabotage the experiment. They're afraid of what it could mean, not just for the Valtari but for us. The ambassador leaned forward, her voice dropping. We need to complete this project, Eliza. Not just for the Valtari but for humanity. The galaxy is watching us. If we fail now, we won't get another chance to prove our worth. An uneasy alliance. In the days that followed, the traitor was identified. A junior researcher named Gavin Lorne. Under questioning, he admitted to providing sensitive information to the dissenters, driven by a mix of ideological opposition and fear of unintended consequences. They're asking us to play God, Lorne argued during his debriefing. This isn't about helping another species. It's about rewriting their DNA, forcing them to be more like us. We have no right. Dr. Warren felt a pang of sympathy for his perspective, even as his actions infuriated her. He wasn't wrong to question the ethics of the project, but his betrayal had endangered everything. The incident forced a difficult conversation within the human team. Could they justify continuing the experiment knowing the risks? And if they did, how could they ensure it was done ethically? A new approach. Determined to salvage the project, Dr. Warren proposed a radical solution. Instead of integrating human DNA directly into the Valtari genome, they would create a hybrid template, a middle ground that preserved the Valtari's unique traits while stabilizing their genetic lattice. It's risky, Warren admitted during a briefing with her team. But it's the only way to ensure that the Valtari retain their identity. If it works, we won't just be saving their species, we'll be creating a bridge between them and us. Dr. Marcus Chan nodded thoughtfully. It's ambitious. But if we can pull it off, it could change everything, not just for the Valtari but for how humanity sees itself in the galaxy. With renewed focus, the team dove into the work. The hybrid template required an unprecedented level of precision, blending elements of human and Valtari DNA in a way that had never been attempted before. The dissenter strike. As the new experiment progressed, tensions aboard the Valtari ship reached a boiling point. The dissenters, emboldened by Lorne's intel, staged a coup attempt, seizing control of key systems and demanding that Orvist abandon the alliance with humanity. "You are leading us to ruin," one of the dissenters accused during a tense confrontation in the ship's council chamber. "The humans will destroy us, whether through their arrogance or their ignorance. We must leave now while we still can." Orvist stood resolute, its luminous eyes blazing with determination. "You speak of destruction, but what you propose is surrender. If we do not take this chance, there will be no Valtari left to protect." The standoff escalated into a physical conflict, forcing Orvist's loyalists to call for help. A joint task force of human and Valtari security teams intervened, defusing the situation but leaving the alliance shaken. The breakthrough. Despite the chaos, the hybrid template experiment moved forward. On the fifth day, the team saw the first signs of success. The synthetic matrix stabilized, its structure glowing with a faint but steady light. "It's working," Dr. Chan said, his voice tinged with awe. Dr. Warren let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Run every test we've got. If this holds, we'll finally have proof that it can be done." The results were undeniable. The hybrid template maintained the integrity of the Valtari genome while introducing the stability of human DNA. It was a delicate balance, but it worked. Word of the breakthrough spread quickly, igniting cautious optimism among both humans and Valtari. Even Orvist, who had remained stoic throughout the process, allowed itself a moment of visible relief. "You have given us hope," it said to Dr. Warren during a private meeting. "Not just for survival but for something more. A future where our species might grow together." A choice to make. With the success of the hybrid template, the final decision now rested with the Valtari Council. They had to choose whether to proceed with the integration, knowing it would fundamentally alter their biology and their identity. Dr. Warren was invited to address the council, a rare honor that underscored the gravity of the moment. As she stood before the assembled Valtari, she chose her words carefully. "This isn't just about survival," she said. "It's about who you want to be. The hybrid template offers a way forward, but it's your decision to make. Whatever you choose, know that humanity stands with you." The council deliberated for hours, their voices resonating in a symphony of light and sound. In the end, they reached a unanimous decision: to move forward with the integration. "This is not the end of the Valtari," Orvist declared. "It is the beginning of something new, a union of hope and resilience, a new dawn." As preparations began for the first live integration, the atmosphere aboard the Valtari ship and in the human labs was one of cautious optimism. The alliance, once fragile and fraught with mistrust, had become a testament to what was possible when two species worked together. For Dr. Warren, the moment was bittersweet. She knew the project was far from over, and the challenges ahead would be just as daunting. But for the first time she allowed herself to believe that they might succeed. "This is how it starts," she thought, watching the sunrise over the distant horizon. "Not with conquest or domination but with understanding. Together we might just have a chance." The atmosphere in the lab was electric as the integration procedure began. The hybrid template had been tested, retested, and refined until every variable had been accounted for, or so they hoped. Suspended in a nutrient-rich biopod was the first volunteer, a Valtari elder named Viora, whose glowing filament veins pulsed with a faint blue light. Viora had been chosen not only for her wisdom but also for her courage. She had seen the slow decline of her people firsthand and believed that embracing change was the only path forward. "Are you ready?" Dr. Eliza Warren asked, standing by the observation window. Viora's voice echoed through the chamber, serene and resolute. We are ready. Begin. Dr. Marcus Chan initiated the procedure, his hands steady as he activated the genetic infusion sequence. A thin stream of glowing liquid, representing the hybrid DNA, flowed into the pod, surrounding Viora like a shimmering cocoon. The room was silent except for the soft hum of machinery and the rhythmic pulse of Viora's life signs. The integration. As the hybrid DNA bonded with Viora's genetic lattice, the transformation began. Her luminous veins brightened, shifting through a kaleidoscope of colors before settling into a steady, golden glow. Her form seemed to ripple, not in a grotesque way, but as if her very essence were realigning itself. Dr. Warren monitored the data streaming across her console. Vitals are stable. No signs of rejection. Cellular integration is proceeding smoothly. Her voice carried a note of awe. After several tense minutes, the transformation completed. The pod systems powered down, and the nutrient fluid drained away, revealing Viora. She appeared unchanged at first glance, but subtle differences were undeniable. Her glow was steadier, her movements more fluid, and her presence exuded a quiet strength. How do you feel? Dr. Warren asked, her voice trembling with anticipation. Viora stepped forward, her feet touching the ground with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. I feel whole, she said, her voice resonating with a newfound depth. As if a missing piece has been restored. Cheers erupted in the observation room. The first live integration was a success, and with it came a wave of hope that rippled through both human and Valtari communities. The reaction. News of the successful integration spread quickly, sparking a mix of reactions across Earth and the Valtari fleet. Supporters hailed it as a groundbreaking achievement, a triumph of cooperation and ingenuity. But not everyone was convinced. Leona Briggs, the leader of the human protest movement, gave an impassioned speech. What we're witnessing isn't salvation, it's assimilation. This is just the beginning of humanity being used as a tool for alien agendas. We must resist before it's too late. Similarly, the Valtari dissenters renewed their objections, claiming that the integration was an affront to their species' purity. Amid the clamor, Ambassador Jaya Rao worked tirelessly to manage the fallout. This is a turning point, she told a packed press conference. We have demonstrated what humanity can achieve when we work not for dominance, but for mutual survival. Now is the time for unity, not division. Bridging the divide. Dr. Warren and her team continued their work, refining the process to make it safer and more accessible. More Valtari volunteers stepped forward, each undergoing the procedure with increasing success. Orvist, the Valtari leader, took a bold step by addressing its people directly. In a broadcast transmitted across their fleet, Orvist stood alongside Viora, whose glowing presence had become a symbol of hope. This is not the end of the Valtari, Orvist declared. It is a new beginning. We are not abandoning who we are ensuring that who we are can continue to exist. Humanity has given us the tools to survive, but the choice to use them was ours. Let us embrace this chance to thrive. The speech resonated with many, though pockets of resistance remained. The Galactic stage. As the integration project gained momentum, it began to attract the attention of other species in the galaxy. Representatives from various civilizations arrived on Earth to observe the process, their curiosity mingled with caution. For the first time, humanity found itself in a position of leadership, not through conquest but through innovation and collaboration. The integration project became a symbol of what the galaxy could achieve when its peoples worked together. Ambassador Rao capitalized on this newfound prominence, proposing the formation of a galactic cooperative council to address shared challenges. To her surprise, the idea gained traction, with several species expressing interest in joining. This is bigger than just humanity or the Valtari, Rao told her team. This is about creating a future where all species can thrive together. The personal cost. Despite the success, the project took its toll on those involved. Dr. Warren, who had dedicated every waking moment to the integration effort, found herself grappling with exhaustion and doubt. One evening, she confided in Dr. Chan, "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing? If we're playing with forces we don't fully understand?" Chan gave her a reassuring smile. "Every great leap forward comes with uncertainty. But look at what we've accomplished. Lives are being saved, Eliza. That's worth the risk." His words offered some comfort, but Warren knew the journey was far from over. A legacy of hope. Months later, the first generation of integrated Valtari began to emerge. They were not fundamentally different from their predecessors, Yet they carried a spark of humanity within them, a reminder of the partnership that had made their survival possible. For the Valtari it was a rebirth. For humanity, it was a moment of pride and introspection. Dr. Warren stood on a hill overlooking the integration facility, watching as humans and Valtari mingled below. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, tempered by the knowledge that the work was just beginning. This is what it means to be human, she thought. Not just to survive but to help others do the same. To build something greater than ourselves. As the sun set, casting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the future stretched out before them. A future shaped by unity, resilience, and the courage to embrace the unknown. It was a future worth fighting for. The weeks following the successful integration were transformative for both the Valtari and humanity. The hybrid beings, born of both species, stood as living testaments to the potential of their alliance. While many of the initial concerns about genetic integrity had faded, new challenges emerged. Humanity and the Valtari now faced the monumental task of not just coexisting, but truly integrating into a shared future. Dr. Eliza Warren, standing at the helm of the ongoing research, felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but also the weight of the unknown. The hybrid beings, now referred to as the Valtarim, were showing signs of extraordinary adaptability, physical enhancements that weren't entirely anticipated. The Valtarim were stronger, more resilient, and their cognitive abilities had accelerated. But this new biology also brought new questions. What would this enhanced species mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Would the Valtarim become something more than the sum of their parts? One evening, Dr. Warren sat alone in her office, staring out the window at the distant horizon. Her reflection was framed by the glowing cityscape, a world alive with possibility. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime, signaling an incoming call from Ambassador Jaya Rao. "Eliza, we need to talk." Rao's voice was firm but tinged with concern. "What's going on, Ambassador?" Warren asked, trying to shake off the fatigue that had settled in her bones. "It's the other species," Rao explained, her tone tight with urgency. "We've received word that some of them are growing anxious about the integration process. The Valtari have become a symbol of hope, yes, but there are those who see them, and now the Valtarim, as a potential threat." Warren felt a knot form in her stomach. The thought of their peaceful experiment becoming the cause of intergalactic conflict was a nightmare she had hoped to avoid. "We've already dealt with protests from within," Warren said. "But I didn't think this would spread to other species." "What do they fear?" "They fear change. They fear that humanity's alliance with the Valtari might disrupt the balance of power among the galaxy's major civilizations. If the Valtarim are stronger and more intelligent than either species alone, what does that mean for the rest of us?" Rao's voice held a mix of disbelief and apprehension. Dr. Warren leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping against the edge of the desk. "So we've made a few waves in the galaxy. I think it's a good thing. We've proven that cooperation can create something greater than division." "I agree," Rao said, but there was hesitation in her voice. "However, some of the galactic powers are calling for a summit to discuss this new threat. And we have to be there." Warren sighed. The summit was inevitable. Whether they liked it or not, the project had become far more than a humanitarian effort. It was now a galactic political chess game. She had known it was only a matter of time before the consequences of their actions reached the larger stage. But nothing could have prepared her for the weight of what was coming. "I'll prepare the team," she said. "But we must present the Valtarim not as a threat, but as proof of what we can achieve together. We need their support, of every species." The line went silent for a moment before Rao spoke again. "Eliza, this may be bigger than anything we've ever faced." Warren's jaw tightened. "Then let's make sure we're ready." The Galactic Summit. A month later, Dr. Warren, Ambassador Rao, and a delegation of both humans and Valtari traveled to the central hub of the Galactic Cooperative, a massive space station orbiting the capital world, a neutral ground where representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered to discuss matters of interstellar importance. The summit hall was grand and intimidating, filled with high-ranking diplomats and representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The air was thick with tension as various factions took their seats, all eyes fixed on the podium where Warren would soon speak. In one corner, a group of species, those most wary of the integration, whispered among themselves, their eyes occasionally glancing toward the Valtari and Valtarim in the room. Their leader, a tall figure from the Scythian race, a cold-blooded reptilian species, spoke loudly enough for all to hear. "The humans' experiment may have saved the Valtari," the Scythian representative said, "but the introduction of the Valtarim into the galaxy changes the balance. Do they now consider themselves a new superpower? Can we trust them to remain neutral in our affairs? Warren's heart raced as she stepped to the podium, Valtari and Valtarim representatives flanking her. She knew this moment would define the future, and she couldn't afford to let fear cloud her voice. Esteemed representatives of the galaxy, Warren began, her voice steady, we stand before you today not as conquerors but as partners. The integration project was never about domination or advancement at the expense of others. It was about survival, our survival, the Valtari's survival, and a future where we work together, not against each other. The room fell silent as she paused. Her words lingered in the air, charged with the gravity of the decision at hand. We are not here to create an empire, she continued. We are here to offer a vision where we can all thrive together. The Valtarim are not a new threat. They are a symbol of what is possible when two species come together for mutual benefit. Their enhanced abilities are a reflection of our ability to overcome our differences, not a reason for fear. At that moment, Viora, the first successful hybrid, stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. Her golden veins pulsed with an ethereal glow, a living symbol of the union between the two species. We have been reborn, Viora said, her voice resonant and calm. But we are not replacing the Valtari, nor are we replacing humanity. We are a new creation born of necessity and hope. We offer ourselves to the galaxy not as an opponent but as a partner. A murmur ran through the crowd. The sight of Viora, and the calm assurance with which she spoke, seemed to cut through the tension that had hung over the summit. The Cynthian representative sneered. And what happens if this new species grows too powerful? How will we control them? Warren's eyes met the Cynthian's, her expression unwavering. You will not control us, she said. But neither will we seek to control you. We will respect the sovereignty of every species here, and we ask for the same in return. This is not about power. It is about cooperation. There was silence in the room. Then one by one representatives began to speak. Some questioned, some expressed skepticism, but many listened intently. The Valtari had proven their willingness to adapt, and the Valtarim had shown they could control their newfound strength. Slowly, the voices of dissent began to fade into the background, and the conversation shifted. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.